The Ole Miss Rebels are one of the country's hottest recruiting teams.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
To this crossover edition of Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On the Portal. I'm your host, Brian Smith, along with longtime Rebels fan and former employee of the Rebels, Mr. Steven Willis. Steven, thank you for joining in. This is a monumental week for Ole Miss recruiting. We have a big announcement, potentially, barring something unforeseen, with Caden Moss later this week. We've got ShUmaker flipping. We'll get into that in a second. Then coming back, we'll get into that as well. They get Mitchell Turner. They have a few other guys that we need to discuss kind of about the class. And, of course, oh, yeah, by the way, they just got another big in-state offensive lineman, Antonio Berry. It has been a rather eventful time. I want to start with ShUmaker and note to everybody, I want to get this out of the way because I don't know what in the world's going on. I'm not sure even Steven does. But Ben'Jarvius ShUmaker had been committed out of Choctaw County for a long time. I see a thing. Hey, he commits to Colorado. We flipped. I'm doing a live show on the Portal podcast, and somebody in my chat says, hey, he just flipped back to Ole Miss. I'm like, oh, shut up. I went and checked, and boy, he wasn't kidding. Right in the middle of my show, I'm like, hold on, I'm going to tweet about this.
It was a surreal day. Now, listen, whenever stuff like this happens, the first thing that you're going to see is you're going to go to social media and it's like, hey, they did this. He got bought. He's chasing the money. Colorado won the auction. You know, that is the thing that will be brought up in this situation, but I don't think it's that necessarily. Listen, everybody likes new commits, and for the last 3 or 4 days, everybody has been talking about Mitchell Turner committing to Ole Miss or potentially. That was probably a little bit of a window for Colorado to come in and try and sow some doubt at what's going on, because you only need one thing to resonate to get somebody to decommit, and then it's game on. And they almost got there. It didn't stick. Ben'Jarvius is like, whoa. All these guys from Mississippi are going to Ole Miss. Why would I leave a playoff team and go off to the Big 12 to just kind of be a dude that gets forgotten about? It was a weird situation. I'm glad it's over. Kind of an interesting day on Twitter for Ole Miss fans. But like I said, it's over. Water under the bridge, yeah, whatever. The end result of it was exactly like Sunday night was. You still have the probably top 3 technique in the entire state of Mississippi coming to your campus.
There you go. I think both of those guys are really good. Mitchell Turner, let's talk about him. He's the other guy. And for the record, Ben'Jarvius ShUmaker and Mitchell Turner, I think they can both play multiple spots in Ole Miss's front. They're going to play some 3-man. They'll probably play some 4-man, do some different things like a lot of teams are now, 4-eye, 3-tech, etc. And that'll take care of itself. They're not that much different in size and everything from each other, but they're a little bit different stylistically. I think Mitchell is the one that wants to, more than anything else, try to embarrass the guy in front of him. He really, really wants to speed rush guys, sometimes with inside technique. That's really risky, but he's so quick he can get away with it. And he can break down almost like a linebacker when he gets in the backfield and adjust and pursue a running back kind of like a backer again. And he's give or take 270 pounds. If you're north of 250 and you can change directions like that, Stephen, your opportunities for college are plentiful.
Listen, when you're dealing with slot receivers and little bitty skill guys, you always hear about phone booth quickness. That player has phone booth quickness. You don't hear it about a 280-pound defensive lineman, but they say that about Mitchell Turner, which means, listen, the problem that Ole Miss had on the back end about not being able to get a pass rush on a 3-man front, Mitchell Turner and Ben'Jarvius ShUmaker together kind of will alleviate that issue to allow you to sink back and really force the quarterback to go. Because, man, Mitchell Turner, he looks like, I think he had 40 and a half tackles for loss, 15 and a half sacks. He's a defensive lineman that had over 100 tackles last year. there's a reason he's ranked where he is. I guess that's the best way to put it. They didn't come up with that number out of nothing. This guy can play. He can really play.
Yeah, he's a very good football player. Alabama really wanted Mitchell Turner. That tells me something. They can be very selective in this class. They're taking a smaller class. They didn't get it. Ole Miss really wanted him, and they pursued him to the end. And you know what? Good for them. I think this will end up being one of their better D-line classes of all time, and we'll see how many they end up with. Right now, they got 6 in the boat, so I might as well just kind of go over them as we speak about this. Obviously, again, top of the board, Mitchell Turner, Ben'Jarvius ShUmaker, guys that can play some edge and definitely play inside. Those are the 2 guys that I'm looking at. I'm like, okay, this is a little bit different. They don't normally get those guys. Our guy Marvin, I'm not going to try to say his last name. The kid from it's playing Connecticut school. He's 6'7", 270 something. He's a rare beast. He's raw, but he's got all kinds of upside. You got the kid Jules Batiste from one of my favorite programs in the country, Edna Carr down in New Orleans. He's an edge rusher. He's in the class. Like, that's just the start, though. Like, the kid from Illinois gets no love because he's an Illinois kid. People in the South don't know about him. Keyshawn Taylor out of Guilford High School just outside of Chicago is a really good player. He's another edge guy. And then you got Jamarcus Pittman, kid out of Memphis, that is your traditional, if you will, nose guard. 290. He hasn't seen 290 in a minute. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. He's a very large human being. 290 was a long time ago. So he may have to change his body weight around and all that, but that's typical of a lot of the kids in the South. They come in and they look totally different 6 months later after they, go through an SEC level strength and conditioning program. This is the kind of program now where they can throw waves at you. Let's be honest. The reason more than any other they lost to Miami last year, they didn't have the depth on the D-line. They just did. They ran out of gas, and it's a long season anyway. But when you can put out 8 guys on the field, rotate them more often, fourth quarter, at least you got a shot if you're trying to make a run at a team. They were just ready to get the hell off the field in that game. They were tired. So
and last year was a problem because they had to, more than everything, cover up the defensive back problems. That
dropping 8 all the time is not helpful.
So that means you're going up against a team like Miami who will use multiple tight ends and have 8 gaps on the line and defend it with 3 players. That's going to be problematic. That's that situation on the back end. They're trying to take care of that, but they're also like, hey, if we have to do that again, we are going to have bodies, and we're going to have high-level SEC bodies to where if they want to try that, okay, we got the people to do it too. And dang it, if Ole Miss didn't almost win that game last year anyway.
That's right. That's right. But eventually you got to get to the point where you can win games with defense and offense. That's something the last regime didn't really do very often. The team in 24 could, but that was the one exception. That D-line was really, really good. I'm not saying they're going to have that, but at the same time, if you're consistently bringing in 1 or 2 top guys in the Mitchell Turner range, it changes things. And to put it in perspective, I follow recruiting nationally. Before we go to break, I want people to really think about this. When you think about the top teams in college football right now in terms of roster, just roster, it's not that hard to figure it out. It's Ohio State, it's Georgia, it's obviously Miami. Indiana's kind of the wild card. I still don't know how the hell they did that. Put them on the side there and put an asterisk, but that's the best coach team I've ever seen. There's no doubt in my mind. Oregon, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, like they all have really good O-line, D-lines. They don't go a class without them. Ole Miss is starting to get better, but this D-line class in particular, we're going to talk about Caden Moss here in a minute after the break. This D-line class can transcend your program into that group. Now, you're not going to have Trinidad Chambliss beyond this year, but that's the whole point. You don't have to have him if you're recruiting like this. No offense to Georgia. Name the last unbelievable quarterback out of Georgia. Yeah, exactly. They don't have to. My guy right here, he's going to run over you. That's how we're going to win tonight. And they do it every night. Ole Miss is recruiting a little bit more like that in the trenches. Obviously getting Antonio Berry. We'll talk about him too. That's the next step. We're going to talk about the O-line, what the recruiting rankings mean, what it kind of shows. That is next right here on this crossover Locked on Ole Miss and Locked on the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of managing software. Just think about Ole Miss's recruiting here recently. Do you really think that a program like Ole Miss would be sitting here right now with 6 defensive line commitments that are all very desirable if they didn't have the right communication and everything in the organization wasn't working smoothly? Probably not. And just like that with your business, you need that kind of organization as well. And great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/locked on. That's odoo.com/locked on. Make sure you check out the Everydayer Club down below in the description below. You can get your ads removed on the audio side, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your pods. And Mr. Willis has a little more that he'd like to explain about what he's doing with the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Stephen, fire away, my friend.
Yeah, it's not just me over at Locked On Ole Miss. We have a staff. You have Dalen Flowers going around the Ole Miss football program, checking out the ins and outs of that. In Oxford, Mississippi, you have Coach Corey Burton. Right now, he's breaking down the John David Baker offense, what he did at East Carolina. And, of course, you have Mike Huseman, who does kind of the behind-the-scene coaching search, transfer portal, and things like that. Lots of big things happening over at Locked On Ole Miss. Join for the free trial, see what it's like for about 7 days. And also, I think we have probably the best newsletter in the Ole Miss sphere. It's very good. It comes out every morning at 7 a.m.
Well, I think that you guys have done a great job, and having the variety is a very unique touch. To that end, the variety for Ole Miss doesn't extend just to one spot. It extends to a bunch. So it's not just DN and D tackle. Offensive tackle and offensive guard are looking pretty good too. They pick up Antonio Berry, a kid that I got to know this past spring. Watched him at the Under Armour New Orleans camp. Really fiery guy. High energy, high emotion, very athletic, and just a mountain of a man. He's from Tupelo High, which is probably the best program right now in northern Mississippi. And it's a program that's produced a lot of kids over the years. It's not exactly like they're a stranger to success on the gridiron or putting kids at the SEC level. Adding him, this is kind of like the possibility. It's still not there yet until it's done in December. But Stephen, when was the last time the state of Mississippi had not one, but 2 elite offensive linemen, and Ole Miss got them? I mean, like really elite, like the LSUs and the USCs and Michigans and everybody. Like this year, Barry could have played anywhere. We know Caden Moss, he decides, barring something unforeseen, he's going to make a decision Friday, I believe. If they get both those kids, when was the last time they got 2 in-state O-linemen like that you were just sky high on?
I don't remember that. Now, for people that are my age that have been around, that's followed Ole Miss football over the years, it was normally Ole Miss and Mississippi State. It's just one of those things to where that's going to divvy it up even before the elite players get plucked. Tennessee coming down or Alabama. This year's different. Listen, Colorado coming in and doing whatever they did to get Cordero McDaniel, whenever that happened. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but whatever it did, that is the lone piece away from Ole Miss basically rebuilding its entire offensive line with true freshmen. He was the other tackle to go with Antonio Berry. And then you have Caden Davis and Antonio Kiefer, and then Ford Wade at center. That's a full unit, kind of a wall that has been built. And it was just one player that it just got weird. It got squirrely. And I'm impressed with that. And right now, I think Ole Miss has 12 blue chip players out of 18 commit so far. Listen, my Simpson County, Mississippi math says it's about 66% blue chip ratio going through. This is an Ole Miss recruiting class that is abnormal. And that is including the Lane Kiffin years, because Pete Golding in his first year, whenever he had 3 days to sign a class on signing day, signed the best class that has happened this decade. This will go back right now. The record, I think, at Ole Miss is 15 blue chip players. They already have 12, and there's still Alvin Mosley to go. There's still Caden Moss to go. That takes you to 14. They have a really good chance of breaking that record, which, you know, after maximizing on the playoff run, it's expected, but it's still good to see.
Yeah, we'll talk about Mosley here in a little bit, but I want to hit on Caden Moss and his recruitment. I've been around him a few times. Great young man, plays at Jackson Academy in Jackson, Mississippi, give or take 320 pounds. I think he'll play guard in college just because he's such a road grader, but he could play tackle. I don't think he really cares either, to be honest. He's just a very good football player. If they get him to go with Barry and maybe they get – we'll see how it all goes. Maybe there's another Colorado reflip. I'm just going to leave it at that. It's a long way to go with Cordero. I'm sure they're working that as well. And there's another kid down in Hattiesburg that's committed to the Georgia Bulldogs. Don't be shocked if that happens. I texted you about that earlier today. Anything's possible in the state of Mississippi. We know it's a very volatile state for recruiting. This has a chance to be also like a D-line class, the best O-line class they've had in at least, quote unquote, quite some time, maybe the past decade. And we know they never struggle to get the skill guys at Ole Miss. I mean, that running back, receiver, and tight end, for the love of mankind, it's right up the alley of the elite programs. But they usually struggle in the fourth quarter because they don't have as much depth, et cetera, talent in the trenches, and they struggle in some of those games. One player can make the difference. Adding a Caden Moss to your offensive line where you can just run generic counter, gap, different plays like that, and not have to put everything on your quarterback, whether it is a Trinidad Chambliss level player or not, is kind of important. What do you think the importance to you in Ole Miss, especially since he's a Jackson kid, of getting Caden Moss would be?
Well, since he is, I guess, the number one player in the state of Mississippi, I think it's important that you get him because that would mean 4 out of the last 5 years you've gotten the number one player in the state of Mississippi. The only one that you didn't get was Tristan Keys last year, who went to Tennessee. I think that's important symbolically. I think it's important to get him because you're trying to capitalize on this playoff run and trying to maximize that. I don't think there's any way that you can maximize it by not getting him. He's somebody that has visited the campus like an amazing amount of time. And he's basically, I'm not going to say he's been committed, but he has been acting like Ole Miss is going to be the place that he's going to end up for a while. So I think that's very important. He's a very important gift for John Garrison, who recruiting wise, all of a sudden, he's just sitting pretty. He has to be sitting back in the Manning Center with his feet up going, yes, this is what I'm talking. This was what was promised to me. And those guys have a chance to be really, really good in the near future because of what they have on the offensive and defensive line, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. When we come back, I want to kind of ask Steven some questions and have a little fun and just kind of wrap up all of this. And we'll talk a little bit about Mosley as well, because Ole Miss is still not done with the recruiting class. Even if they get Mr. Moss, they have some other possibilities. And I want people to wrap their heads around where Ole Miss is in the recruiting sphere. This isn't your grandfather's Ole Miss recruiting machine. It's quite a bit different. That is next right here on this crossover. All right, Steven, I've got a few questions and comments that I want to throw up for those of you on YouTube, and I'll read it off for those of you listening. In-state recruiting, that's something Steven and I have talked about. It has changed massively. And in particular, look at the O-line, D-line recruits. We talked about that today, but to really put it in the perspective, they're not just beating Mississippi State or Memphis or Arkansas. They're beating like Bama, Mitchell Turner. Bama was his leader all the way through. LSU's recruited several of these kids. Auburn's recruited several of these kids. Texas is trying to get a foothold in the state of Mississippi. Those are the kinds of kids that they're getting. And the fourth part here, the group they have, I mean, its class is not done yet. It's a far more balanced group than normal. And it starts in state. They've only taken a handful, but that's twofold. Number one, don't just take a Mississippi kid to take them. You got to get players that are going to contribute. And let's just be blunt. Can they help you beat Mississippi State? Can they help you beat LSU? And can they help you at least compete to get in the SEC title game. Those are kind of your generic goals now if you're Ole Miss. I think the kids they've taken, they're right there, and they're going after Ty Keys. They're going after kids that, have a chance to play at any school, Alabama, Florida, wherever, from in-state. Are you surprised at the level of success they've had in-state, and should they even focus more? Because it seems like, at least with the top-end guys, their message is resonating because either they're getting them or they're right there at the very end. They're really close with everybody. There's like nobody they're getting shut out completely on. That didn't always used to be the case.
Yeah, and I want to give credit to SB Performance down in Jackson, the school academy, whatever you want to call, run by Mike SB. And what that has done has given people all the way from the coast, because the Dylan Alford and his brother are part of that, but they do a great job of at first building wide receivers. You get great route runners, great hands, and things like that. That has improved the stock. But as that center has grown up, they've also taken into where they do some things with offensive and defensive linemen. And basically the 7-on-7 culture on top of that, the whole state of Mississippi has gotten better. And you have more finished products, more college-ready products by the time they get to where they're going. And because of that, you have, instead of 3 or 4 or 5 4-stars in the state of Mississippi, like we had probably 10 years ago, now you have 15. And the point of that is, if Ole Miss can get 8 or 9 of those 15 to stay at home, they are going to be a lot better off than when they were getting 3 of the 5 or 6 to stay home. It's one of those things. Better players are going to make you a better school. It's going to make everything a little easier. So the talent of Mississippi high school football getting better means that Ole Miss needs to pay attention to it, because you're naturally going to be able to recruit those kids at a higher rate than you can the out-of-state kids. So I do think that Pete Golding attacking in-state is not just intentional, it's warranted. And Mississippi high school football has gotten better to the level to where you can attack it. You're not just taking a 3-star to take it, a kid from Macomb that is coming to your school just because you had a spot open. No, you're taking a random 4-star from some high school in Mississippi that you may not have ever heard from, but it gets there, and that guy is going to improve the depth of your team. It's going to make them a little bit better. And as long as that rises, it's like, a rising tide raises all boats. That's kind of the situation. You can talk about Ole Miss, you can talk about Mississippi State, you can talk about Southern Miss, but it took the high school football getting better to raise those universities.
Absolutely. Also, do you think because of the success, Stephen, the Rebs should stay closer to home? Recruit more Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, etc. Just they branched out quite a bit under Lane, and that's okay. He had connections at other spots. Do you think they should stay home, be NIL donations? Surely to God, they're going up, I would assume. And I want to ask you about running back and tight end recruiting too. That's the only 2 spots they don't have somebody. So first off, locally, do you think it's more likely that Pete and everybody hey, it's working? I mean, you got Miguel Whitley from New Orleans. You got a couple of other kids from just outside the state, like Jules Batiste. And then, of course, the in-state kids are going after the elite. Does that influence them to kind of keep it more local moving forward, or do you think it's going to be random?
I think it's going to be a little bit random, because you remember the same class, you have Keegan Croucher, who's from upstate New York, and Marvin, I can't pronounce his last name yet. He's from somewhere in Connecticut, and you have Rushian from Chicago. I mean, the Ole Miss needs to capitalize on their playoff run, and part of that was the exposure that Ole Miss's brand went out to all of these players that were watching that, and kind of got your foot in the door. To shut them out would not really work. Now, I will say this. If there is a player that's just as good from Mississippi as a player from Texas, you take the kid from Mississippi, because that's the way that should work. So by default, tie goes to the home state, but it's very rare that you find a tie.
Yeah, you got to get the best guys. So I get that. The NIL donations. I'm assuming that's going up, right? Because they've got to be spending some cash. Like you're not getting Antonio burying these kids for freebies. They're not taking the hometown discount and being like, oh, it's all good. It's not how it works in today's era. What do you think about the NIL with Ole Miss?
Like Ole Miss isn't Texas. They don't have a checkbook like that. They don't have Scrooge McDuck's vault to go dive and swim around in. But we had Walker Jones on my show, and he said, we want to make $1 spend like $3. So that just means that you have to be smart. That doesn't mean that you have to be thrifty. That doesn't mean that you have to be frugal. It just means that you have to be sure. And that is one thing and one reason that Ole Miss has kind of gone up in the last couple of years is because there hasn't been many misses. Occasionally there are, but it's not like it is at other places. And as long as that continues, until the high school rank hits that same level of the transfer portal, if you can just push that off to where you don't have that SAG season, I think it's going to be allowed to kind of bridge for the time being. They're just really good at what they do at this point.
What about running back and tight end? Is the goal to get one each? They don't have one at either spot, and I know they're after Ty Keys and some other guys. Tight end, I have no idea. There's a kid from Tennessee they had in for an OB, but any idea like what the situation is at either of those spots?
I think until further notice, at some point in the next couple of weeks, you're going to start seeing the name Ty Keys pop up in Ole Miss circles. They're going to pay attention to that. I mean, now Miami has some money and all those guys. It might be difficult to flip a commitment, but he's a guy that was, I don't know, intrigued by Ole Miss in the early parts before he committed. So if you can do that, he took an official visit to Ole Miss after he committed to Miami. That also lets you know that he's still interested. So they're going to do that effort. As far as tight end goes, I think with Caleb Odom and the young guys that they've brought in, this might just be an off class for the tight end position. They're not going to go all out for that because they have so many dudes in that room at the moment, and especially so many talented guys. So, yeah, I think they like Michael Smith. I think they like Luke Haas. I think they like Caleb Odom. I think as long as you have that and you have a depth chart over multiple years, I don't think you freak out.
All right. Well, that kind of puts it in perspective. Ole Miss fans should feel really good about where the program's at and what's been going on this week in particular. So Caden Moss is the next one to watch. We assume they're going to get him, but hey, it's recruiting. Anything is possible. So, Steven, please tell everybody where they can find your work.
Yes, you can check me out at Locked On Ole Miss on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Check it out. On Saturday, Alvin Mosley is supposed to announce. We didn't even talk about him.
We didn't get to it.
Yeah, there's just so much going on. But do that. Join the Everydayer Club. 7-day free trial. LockedOnOleMiss.supercast.com. And we like to have a good time. So thank you very much, and we'll see you there.
All right. You can find this podcast, Locked On the Portal, the same places you find Locked On Ole Miss, Spotify, Apple, Podbean, Amazon Music, and, of course, on YouTube. This has been a crossover, Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On the Portal.